1619 is the most important date in our history that people don't know much about. The process of democracy, the hard work of democracy, started here. This begins the democratic experiment. We're in the Memorial Church at Jamestown, and this is the site where the first General Assembly met in 1619.
In 1619, life in Virginia was very difficult. The population numbered around 400, give or take, and it was a mostly male population. Food was a constant source of worry and consternation.
The Virginia Company, which was a commercial venture, wasn't making enough money. There simply weren't enough ships coming, there weren't enough settlers here. The enterprise seemed to be at the point of disaster.
They needed to do something to attract new settlers to the colony of Virginia. So in order to better attract those individuals that they wanted to come over, they had to do something a little bit different. So what they ended up doing with the Great Charter was enabling a representative form of government so that the settlers who were already in Virginia and those who would be coming to the colony could have a voice in the governance of how things would work. I'm standing in the reconstructed 17th century church in the middle of the Jamestown settlement. It would have been what the first assemblymen met in 1619.
This was the only place they could meet. It was like a town hall.
The first assembly lasted only 6 days and ended because Governor Yardley became ill because of the extreme heat. We also had an assemblyman die because of the extreme heat during this particular period.
Probably a lot of shouting, or at least heavy discussion on things and disagreements, pretty much like we experience today.
And the votes were confirmed by common assent, again by voice. It would confirm relationships with Indian peoples. It would confirm commerce.
So it would have been the governor and his advisors and those initial representatives. It's still those who are the landowners, those who have a bit more monetary stake in the colony.
When African slaves were brought in 1619, of course, they were not allowed to vote, have any say at all. Indian peoples couldn't vote, women weren't allowed to vote. Democracy would take a long time, centuries to develop. The democratic form of society founded here was a first step, if you like.
So the General Assembly with all of the representatives, burgesses, would have been right here, and then just to this side, probably a step up with tiles behind, would have been where Governor Yardley and his people of the state, the people with him on his council, would have been.
So George Yardley, he was knighted by the King, James I, so that he could become governor of Virginia. Directly behind where I'm sitting, absolutely immediately behind me, we found an oversized grave shaft, and we went down to an undisturbed grave.
Our idea is that it had to be one of the early governors, and the most likely candidate was Sir George Yardley. By finding Yardley, you find one of the only participants in that General Assembly's burial place that we have ever seen before. By being there and seeing where the individual is buried, it calls to mind again and again that place in history and the impact that it's had on today. That's what we're trying to do here with the church excavation in terms of the General Assembly, kind of fill in some of the gaps, fill in what the landscape was like for that first meeting.
You've got the original site itself, the groundbreaking archaeology that's going on there with the National Park Service and Preservation Virginia. And here at Jamestown Settlement, we're striving to show kind of an artist's rendition, if you will, of what they're discovering at that site. So what we strive to do is really immerse the visitors in an interactive historical experience. Highest-ranking officer left, stuck holding the bag for this. We try to provide as many opportunities as possible for visitors to join in and really experience the history for themselves.
When you get to physically stand in a structure that's very close, if not identical, to what those first assemblymen would have experienced it, I think that immersive history really begins to come alive. Through immersive living history, you get a sense for what it would have felt like to be here in Virginia during that period in time and interact with the space and feel what it's all about. The importance of the 1619 Virginia Assembly here at Jamestown really sets the stage for that long process of American democracy to be played out. And as the institution continued to endure throughout Virginia's history, I think you really start to see those seeds of American democracy being planted here.
And the Virginia General Assembly, it's founded in 1619, is the model that the Continental Congress is based on with the creation of the federal government during the Revolution. So that this is a direct evolution to the system of government that we use today.
It's beyond America. It's supposed to be the beginning of representative government in the Western Hemisphere. It's important to know where we come from, where the beginnings are, the foundations of a system that we're still using, so that you can understand how we evolved into what we have today.